Welcome to Art Beat, Canada's art pulse. I'm your host, Katie. Today, we embark on a moving exploration with artist Morgan Booth. From her early inspiration by Picasso to her distinctive use of a limited palette, Morgan's art speaks volumes. She examines the emotional depth of her color choices, creating narratives that intensely resonate with viewers, along with the pivotal role of physical space in her art, forging connections and unraveling the surreal. Join us as Morgan discusses her pursuit of artistic refinement, the nuanced relationship between growth and creation, and fearlessly shares her journey of navigating chronic illness, drawing solace and strength from her art. Morgan, hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm so good. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, we're very excited to have you. So, Morgan, I want to start by hearing more about your background. I'm curious how and when and why you got into painting. What can you tell us?
I think it's kind of the classic artist tale of just, I've always been obsessed with art. I was thinking that you were probably going to ask me this question. I was kind of trying to reflect on it. And I'm like, what's an art moment that I remember? I remember sitting in front of the TV trying to draw Princess Diana when she passed when I was younger, and like doing it, like trying to do it in this different way because my mom had all of these Picasso prints all around and stuff like that. And so I was like trying to capture that. And so that was kind of like one of my first moments of being like, ooh, art, I'm an artist. And then I just continued drawing and being excited about art. I auditioned to get into an arts high school, Wexford in Scarborough. And that was just amazing. Like, I got to do life drawing for my third period class. And I just feel like that was such a huge influence, being able to practice art and like be able to identify as an artist at that kind of young age. Then I went to OCAD for a spell before dropping out. Mm-hmm. And then in my early 20s, I got really, really involved with Art Battle, which is a live competitive painting community, and just kind of like immersed myself in all of these different art communities, and just was like, these are my people. I want to make work. Just I think being a part of a creative community is what made me really feel gravitation, or like made me feel really connected to being an artist, was being around other artists.
And Morgan, I want to talk a bit about the style in which you paint, because it's very unique. And you work with a limited palette. So can you tell us how that challenges or inspires your creative process?
My limited palette is something that kind of came about when I was first starting to learn oil painting. And I didn't feel like doing your traditional black and white value studies. And so I decided to do blue and white. And something just like clicked. And my brain was totally on fire with it. And I just became really, really connected to that. And like with my work, using the blue for the figures and warmer colors in the background creates a piece that ends up being quite demanding and commanding when you walk into a room or walk into an exhibition and see the work. It kind of is so loud and full of contrast and saturation that it really brings the viewer right to it. So that's something that I really like to concentrate with. And also, there's so many interesting facts about like how people relate to color on a physiological level. Like, it can raise the heart rate, and blue can actually slow the heart rate and create a sense of relaxation. So I think it's also interesting to kind of explore what viewers might be experiencing while they're engaging with the work, and even the physical sensation of being present with the work.
Can you describe a moment when a particular palette that you used evoked a strong emotional or conceptual response in your work?
I think using the blue is something that connects with people really well, because there's almost like a sense of clarity and sadness and vulnerability that can be associated with blue. And so translating an image into that blue monotone and having the figure just be those varying shades of blue, I think kind of disarms people a little bit and gets them in touch with their feelings.
And how do you decide which colors to use, and like what inspires the choices?
Working within the limited palette has been something that I just continuously find inspiring, working with the blue for the figure and the different colors for the background, most often warm colors. I just can't get enough of it. And that's something that's really important to me in my practice, is continuing to explore within a set of aesthetic parameters. I love being able to kind of push and pull against them, see how I can manipulate them in different ways to express different ideas and different characters and different emotions. Keeping that limited palette has really helped me to push against rules in order to create something new. So it's just something that I find honestly endlessly interesting.
How do you see your art evolving in the near future based on what you've been doing so far?
The way that I see my work evolving is that I'm getting closer and closer to that kind of execution quality that I really have been looking for since the beginning of kind of honing into this aesthetic. It's something that provides just such an endless amount of satisfaction and like a feeling of problem solving, because of such an incredibly clear idea of what I want the piece to look like, what I want the piece to feel like, the textures involved in the work, the sharp lines, the softer elements, and how I want them all to come together. When we kind of, for anyone who's heard about the taste gap, famous quote by Eric Glass about not being able to create work that suits your taste or is up to the par of your taste. And so my biggest pursuit in creating my work is definitely trying to close that taste gap as much as I can. And right now I'm feeling really good about where the work is going and kind of those technical skill levels that I've been developing. And of course, there's always going to be so much room for improvement in any art practice. But finding that I'm getting closer to that technical quality that I have been looking for really feels like it's going to open me up to more ways to explore that aesthetic and more ways to bring new and fresh ideas into it.
Can you tell us more about how your personal experiences shape the way you envision and portray figures in your art?
When I'm creating my figures, I really want to evoke this sensation for the viewer of being seen. A lot of my pieces have this kind of unwavering stare and often a fairly neutral facial expression that I've always chased in my life, is this feeling of recognizing myself, that kind of feeling where you're not trying to be yourself, you just are. You're not trying to put on anything. And so in my figures, I really want them to have this sensation of presence, like unapologetic presence, super intense eye contact. And even when I'm not using eye contact, if the figure has their eyes closed, it's this moment of like communion with self. With the figures, I really want the viewer to have that sensation of being seen. And kind of the ideal goal of my work in an emotional sense would be for the collector of my piece to kind of like have that piece as a touchstone to be able to connect with and be like, oh, okay, like not feeling like myself, and just that to be like a reminder, like stand in yourself, stand in your power.
Can you talk a bit about like what the role that the physical space around the figure plays in creating a connection with the viewer?
Around the figure, I use a lot of flat colors and flat elements and pattern. And I really want to use those elements to kind of create a sense of like unreality, that those are flat and just almost like not real. And then the figure is the only thing that is real and complex. So almost like an exploration on in the world, and like that your sense of self is very complex.
Do the figures in your art come from a particular place or are inspired, or is it just something that you have in your mind that you then translate onto the canvas?
It depends on what the show is. I've had a lot of really incredible opportunities in the last few years to participate in themed group exhibitions. And so the way that has worked is that I get given a theme and asked to create a piece for the exhibition. And I'll really sit with the theme and kind of like try to feel it out and try to think of what kind of person or figure embodies that for me and how I want to create that expression. I would say a lot of my work is inspired by the kind of prompts that I've been given for different exhibitions. And when I have the opportunity to do open theme exhibitions, we kind of try to just focus on creating a person that has that level of presence and engagement.
And how do you hope the viewer's perception changes or deepens after experiencing your art?
I hope that they're still thinking about the piece. I hope that really intense kind of eye contact and almost like conversation with the piece sticks with them. And I hope that they remember it and that it makes them unnerved, but in a good way. It just kind of, I hope that their defenses are a little bit down and that they have that sensation of having been witnessed.
So you mentioned having your work in group exhibition. I'm curious to know, like, how has showing your work at places like Modern Eden and Arch Enemy Arts, how has that impacted your career and artistic journey?
It's been amazing. It's been so incredible. The number of artists that are showing at these places is just, it's crazy. And working in this pop surrealist kind of network of galleries and network of artists has been something that is just incredibly inspiring, especially from a technical level. Like, there are so many incredible, amazing ideas that that the artists that show at these places come up with, but also just having the opportunity to see the work and really like appreciate the technical aspects of it too. It just really pushes me as an artist. And I would say working with Modern Eden and Arch Enemy has pushed me to really want to make my work better. The caliber of these places and the caliber of the work and the technical skill and the inspiration that they're showing makes me feel like my work has to live up to that. And so every time I've gotten an invitation to a show, the goal is for the piece to be better than the piece before it. And the themes really help me kind of stretch myself, which I always appreciate.
Can we talk a bit about the journey of refining your artistic process, and you tell us what that has looked like and how it has evolved over time?
My favorite thing to talk about, that's nerdiness. I would say the biggest kind of excitement and like jumping off point was when I started using spray paint in my work. So the figures are painted in oil, and then the background elements and clothing elements and any other pattern that I want to introduce is usually done with a vinyl cutter and creating a stencil and using spray paint or an airbrush to create those elements. And so once I introduced that into my practice, it was like, oh man, like this spark just happened, and it just felt like things were clicking, and I had like these beautiful matte areas of color, and they were just so flat and perfect. And then trying to contrast that with so much softness in the figure in oil has been really, really fun. And it's something that I'm just continuously trying to improve. And I would say that the thing that I enjoy most about my process is being able to do those small little tweaks that make the technical aspects of the pieces better. So maybe I find masking paper or something like that. Or maybe I find the perfect spray paint, or anyone who knows me in person has heard me talk endlessly about varnish. Just finding these small refinements in order to try to achieve what's in my mind, and that level of quality is can be very frustrating. But I've just kind of entered into the space where things are clicking in a really satisfying way, and I feel like I've found a lot of the different elements of the tools that I want to use consistently, and that just feels like such a great jumping off point, because it makes me feel more creative when I'm not having to problem solve material issues.
Was there an instance while refining your process that led to like a breakthrough in your work?
I would say it's such a hidden part of my process, but I got an airbrush recently, and that has allowed me to kind of seal all of the different acrylic elements that I'm creating with the spray paint with this beautiful matte varnish that I'm using in the airbrush. And I've also used airbrush to start introducing some gradients. And I used the airbrush in a piece that's a really, really special piece to me called The Shadow of Luck, which is where I had hands that were casting a shadow of a rabbit, like a shadow puppet. And that was just such a satisfying moment. And it just made things more possible. Like the small refinements that you can add into a process just create more possibilities for the work going forward. So even if it's just a thin layer of varnish over top of spray paint, that means that it's perfectly matte and that it's scratch resistant. And so I don't have to worry about it. So airbrush, and actually probably even further to that, if I go back even a little bit more, is the introduction of my vinyl cutter in my process and being able to create super elaborate stencils.
And how do you balance the drive for improvement with the satisfaction of creation?
I feel like they're the same thing. That's such a huge part of my process is just engaging technically with the piece. I feel like I create up until the point of getting to the oil paint, and that feels maybe a little bit drier to me because I'm trying to create this perfect representation with the stencil and the flat color and the intricate patterns and things like that. And then when I sit down to work on the oil painting part, that's when the piece becomes emotional for me because that's when I'm connecting the character.
Can you describe a moment for us where you realized that embracing this unique style was pivotal to your artistic identity?
Well, the exact moment. I'm so grateful for this moment. I remember I was actually interviewing with Alex Garant to become her studio assistant, and I had recently left, or I had recently decided to really dedicate myself to my art because I had found that I wasn't really creating work. I was just feeling a little bit lost. And so I'm having this interview with Alex, and she's looking at my work, and a lot of it at that point was more in like less refined, but still exploring the blue and the red. And then I had all of these other kind of random styles thrown in. I was taking classes and things like that. And she's like, I like the blue and the red. I'm like, yeah, it's cool, but I can do other stuff too. And she had this moment where she asked me, like, why are you putting energy into doing other things if what you really want to be doing is the blue? And it really clicked for me at that moment that I was trying to prove that I can do other things, which I can, haha. So I still haven't fully let go of that one. But that it was okay to stick to one style, and that was valid, and that was going to be something that was super satisfying. And I was able to really throw myself into that aesthetic after she said that. It was just kind of a light bulb moment.
Speaking of Alex, I understand that she's been a bit of a mentor for you. So I'm wondering, how has her mentorship played a role in helping you to overcome the doubts that you had?
I think it was just that moment of that permission to just really dig into that aesthetic. That was probably the biggest moment of overcoming doubt. And also, she kicks my ass too. And especially at that point, I often would have frank discussions where I was experiencing a lot of anxiety in the studio, or doubt, or imposter syndrome. And she advised me that the only way to get over those things was just to make the work. You don't have to wait until you're good enough to exhibit, to start applying for things. You don't need anyone's permission. Every piece that you do is going to be the best piece ever. And you need to get okay with that, like being precious with your work, especially in the early stages. You can just get mired in perfectionism. And so, yeah, it was just something like that, where I just had someone who was an artist that I respect a lot, and she just told me to, like, just do it. Just do the things. And just doing the work is how I got over that fear and that doubt, and I started putting my stuff out there. And Alex is still a very good friend to this day.
How has living with chronic illness, affected your art and how you navigate your art career? What does that look like for you?
It's been, it's probably the biggest challenge within my art practice now. In a way, it's also pushed things in a positive direction, and I'll expand on that. So I have rheumatoid arthritis, which is very limiting for my energy, for my mobility, and for much of last year and the year prior, this would swell. So sometimes I would not have like access to using my hands to paint and to create art, sometimes for up to like 50% of the month. And that was a massive challenge, and continues to be a massive challenge. I have better treatment options now, but I would say that the way that it's influenced my work and my creative output is that it's really helped me knock down some of the easel anxiety. So I used to kind of sit at the easel, and I'd like that perfectionism would really creep in, and you just like get intimidated by creating your work almost, which can be awful. That's a horrible feeling. But because of the limitations that exist for me physically and with my energy output, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. And so having more limited access to my hands or to the energy that's needed to create a painting has made me a lot more grateful for my practice and has made me a more present artist, because when I do have the opportunity for studio time, I show up. I have to show up. It's also helped me to bring in more compassion into my practice, because if I spent all of my time being angry about this condition that exists and that I'm dealing with, and like heal myself and things like that, if I get angry about it, then I'm just using that energy when I could have been using it in the studio. I'm using that energy to be angry or to be sad. And that's not to say that I don't still have those feelings. I think everyone who has chronic illness and deals with that, there's definitely levels of anger and grief. It definitely helps me be more present and compassionate to myself for when I don't have that ability. Maybe I think about, okay, what else can I do? So maybe I can't paint today, but maybe my hands are good enough that I can use the computer, or even just conceptualize pieces, or write an exhibition proposal or an application or things like that. And so it just kind of is like a capacity. This is what I like to call it, where I make an assessment of where I'm at each day and try to figure out how I can show up for myself and how I can show up for my art in that day.
And how do you find strength and inspiration to keep creating?
Addicted to it. I'm addicted to it. Honestly, I think my inspiration to keep creating is just, I have such an opportunity to be surrounded by all of these incredible artists in the communities that I'm able to participate in. And I just see so much amazing work being made all of the time. And I want to, it makes me want to create my own work. And I would say that's the inspiration. It's just seeing other people creating work. I can't not create. It's present, and it's something that we'll have to navigate and kind of negotiate to be able to create my work, but I can't ever imagine not doing it. It's just such a huge driver of satisfaction in my life.
Are there any particular pieces of yours that you've created that reference or relate to your chronic illness?
This is probably the most personal piece of work that I've ever made, which is interesting because it doesn't contain a figure. The piece is called A Shadow of Luck, and was a piece that I did for the Year of the Rabbit group exhibition at Modern Eden. What I did was I had my husband, who's a photographer, shoot photos of my hands in the gesture that would be a rabbit hand puppet. I hadn't created work that was influenced by my body before this. At that time, a few months where I really had such little access to my hands. And I was really grieving and frustrated and angry. I got this prompt inviting me to this show. And the prompt was about hopes for the new year. And so I decided to do the rabbit, the symbol of luck, and just manifest for myself that I was going to have an amazing painting year, and that my hands were going to be a part of that. And so it was really intense. It was, and continues to be, an intense piece for me. And that was also a piece that I used as kind of a coming out chronically ill piece, because I hadn't shared online prior that this was something that I was dealing with. And so that felt really brave to me or it felt like it took bravery to kind of share that, because I'm quite private about my illness, and that's something that I'm really, really working on, because I want to connect with people more related to that, because I always feel I feel connected to people who share more vulnerably about themselves, especially when they're dealing with illness or limitations or things like that. And yeah, I used that piece kind of like, it was very therapeutic creating that piece, using my own hands in the painting, and then also using that piece as a conversation starter to talk about, I have an illness. It's something that I deal with. And that felt extremely vulnerable, because talk about it too much and have people think that that's the only thing that I want to talk about. Yeah, so that's still part of the puzzle that I'm kind of navigating.
Do you plan to make more work that references living with chronic illness in the future?
I really see a hand series potentially in the future. Another hand series. I love painting hands so much. So many artists I know, they hate it because they're hard, and they are
can't
hard.
Be easy.
But I just find that you're able to bring so much emotion into the gestures that hands can create, and so I think a hands series would be really great. And in a way that's not super direct, I find that a lot of my work feels like it references to talking about that level of presence. The work has felt like it's more symbolic of resilience and just being like, here, I'm here. It feels like it relates to illness, because like, F that, I'm still making art.
Yeah, I was going to ask, where does that come from, that feeling of wanting to paint pieces that represent resilience to you? You know, how do you even convey that emotion onto the canvas?
It's in that intensity of presence and the eye contact, and just the figure being very stark, and just it's hard to describe. I would say the piece that I feel that has a lot of resilience that I've done lately is this piece Vision that I did for Arch Enemy. It's this woman who's staring straight on in the frame, just this super intense eye contact, and she's wearing a piece of clothing that has eyes throughout the pattern, and it's called Vision, and it's just about like trusting your internal vision and being seen and seeing yourself. This is super, like, to me it feels very confrontational, but I love it.
I'm curious to know how you maintain authenticity of your artistic voice online in the age of social media, and, you know, particularly an artist, which being an artist and creating art in the first place is a very vulnerable way to put yourself out into the world. So how do you maintain your authenticity?
Say that that's actually one of my biggest goals for the year, is to share more authentically. I think in the past, I've had a tendency of just sharing the work, which I totally respect and appreciate, that sometimes that's just what an artist wants to do. But I want to have more conversations about times that I've shared about chronic illness. It's really resulted in a lot of interesting conversations and like authentic connections, and people wanting to reach out to me and talk to me about their experiences and how that makes them connect to their work. And that's just been such an incredible healing part of using social media. And I have used it I have talked about chronic illness online only a few times. And so I would say that my biggest goal for this year is to share more authentically, not just about illness, but also just about process, or maybe I'm having a frustrating day in the studio because the varnish ate my painting, or something like that. Just sharing more. And so I would say navigating authenticity in the space now is, or in social media, is a challenge. It's hard to know how much to show up sometimes. Like sometimes maybe you need to be private, and sometimes maybe you need to be connecting and sharing, and kind of trying to balance that is something that I think is a consistent challenge that all artists are dealing with.
Do you have any particular strategies in thinking about connecting with your audience this year? You plan to share more about, your works in progress, or like you were just mentioning, your challenges with your chronic illness? Like what does this next year look like for you in terms of expanding your community online?
Would love to put my face online more, because I don't at all. I've done it a few times. Just like talk to, I don't want to say talk to my audience, because that's not what I mean. Like once you start putting videos of yourself out and talking about your daily experience or your opinions or sharing or anything like that, it ceases to become a performer and audience interaction, and then it becomes more of a one-to-one or a community interaction and like connection. And so I'd really like to foster that. I'd really want to be brave and put my face out there. It's uncomfortable, but I think that it yields the most authentic connection.
And it's interesting hearing that you want for yourself to feel more comfortable in being seen. And what I'm hearing is that's what your work is about.
Katie, you got me. You got me. Oh, man. Oh, I'm going to carry that out of this session. That's
very interesting parallels there, Morgan. From your experience, what unique opportunities does the Canadian art scene offer to artists?
Historically, there's been a certain level of tendency for commercial galleries to be more receptive towards traditional art, or more towards landscape work and things like that. And that's not to down landscape work. I love landscape work. It makes me feel really connected to a sense of place. But I do think that historically that there's been kind of this one pervasive, or few genres of pervasive themes of Canadian art that have been acceptable to successful commercial galleries. And I think that we're starting to see a shift in that. We're definitely getting towards voices that are expressing things that are maybe a little bit more contemporary. I would love to see more surrealist work coming to the forefront.
My favorite.
And I think that as far as the Canadian art landscape goes right now, I think that a lot of younger Canadian artists are breaking those barriers for themselves using social media, and not waiting for platforms to open the gates. You know what I mean? And I also have to give a huge acknowledgement to I think that Toronto in particular has a really good opportunity for artists to self-present work in some of the fairs that we have, the Toronto Outdoor Show, Riverdale Art Walk. And so I would say that what I'm really getting a sense of in the Canadian art landscape right now is taking control of their work and presenting it themselves, and creating these communities for themselves. And there's also lots of exciting, interesting platforms coming to mind as well, like Partial and Peggy. And again, those are very artist-driven.
Morgan, how has showing your work and taking in part of international exhibitions, how does that shape your view of Canada and how Canadian society supports or doesn't support artists within the country?
Because I personally know so many incredible Canadian artists. And I think that sometimes as a culture can get a little bit stuck in waiting for validation from larger creative entities in the States. Like we see that with actors and musicians and singers and of course artists as well. A lot of Canadian artists, I think, gain more recognition in Canada after showing in the States or showing elsewhere internationally. And so I think that that's something that maybe is a little bit frustrating. Again, I think that artists are just trying to combat that by showing up for themselves and sharing each other's work and creating communities within themselves to kind of push each other up.
Do you have any thoughts around why it is that Canada needs validation from external sources, let's say, to take their talent seriously?
Because the industries tend to be a little bit smaller, like the creative industries tend to be a little bit smaller in Canada. A lot of spaces and platforms are more risk averse, whereas because industry and community might be a little bit, or might be larger, is larger in the States, they're more likely to take a chance on something that's a little bit more unconventional.
Speaking of exhibitions, I understand you have a few upcoming, such as with Drake Hotel, Wow X Wow, Nanny Goat Gallery. What can you tell us about what's coming up next for you?
I'm very, very excited. And this is going to function also as the announcement that I've got that solo show coming up at the Drake. And I'll be showing a collection of paintings. And this will be my first time in quite a few years showing in Toronto as well. So it's going to be really fun and exciting to be able to have my community here have the opportunity to see my work and for me to be able to present it. So that's the biggest thing I would say that's coming up for me in terms of upcoming exhibitions. I'm also super excited to be working more with Wow X Wow. A lot of those shows, they give you the title of the exhibition, but don't necessarily hold you to a theme or to a really strict theme. And so there's a lot of opportunity to really explore within those pieces. And I feel like I'm just going to be excited about the creative input or about the creative process of creating for my solo, that's going to continue into those exhibitions as the summer progresses with Wow X Wow and Nanny Goat Gallery, which is doing their debut exhibition in Sonoma.
Can you give us a sneak peek into any new techniques or explorations that we might see in these upcoming exhibitions, or even if you are looking into new themes within your art for these new exhibitions?
I'm really going to be pushing myself even more as far as the pattern elements go. And that's probably the most painful part of my process. That's something that I feel there's still a lot of opportunity to explore and push and pull with that. And so I really want to continue concentrating on creating really interesting pattern work within the aesthetic that I've created. And I think also some more metallic elements. I've been really having fun with that lately. And they're just so much fun in person. When you get the metallics right on a painting, it's just, it's so fun.
So Morgan, where can our listeners find your work?
I actually have a show on where I'm a part of a group exhibition that's on right now at Arch-Enemy Arts. My piece, I Am Infinite, is in that show. It's a piece that I feel really connected to and excited about. So if you're in Philly and you get an opportunity gallery and go see that. You can find me in general online at Morgan Booth Art on Instagram, morganboothart.com, and I also have some works available via Modern Eden as well.
Well, Morgan, thank you so much for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing what's next for you.
So much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Katie.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on Artbeat, where the stories of Canadian art come to life. Follow us on Instagram at Artbeat Podcast for exclusive content and previews of what's to come. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to stay updated with our journey through the world of Canadian art. Enjoyed the episode? Leave a review or recommend us to a fellow art enthusiast. Together, let's keep the conversation going and deepen our connection to the diverse world of Canadian art. See you next time.